Hello and welcome to the lesson Life Processes in Living Organisms. And here we will understand asexual reproduction in unicellular or one-cell organisms. The formation of a new organism of the same species by an earlier existing organism is called reproduction. That is when an existing organism gives birth or forms another new organism, that is called reproduction. Reproduction is of two types, that is sexual reproduction where male and female gametes are required, and asexual reproduction where the part of the plant, stem, leaves, or other parts of the plant are used to get a very similar exact kind of a organism. The process of formation of a new organism by an organism of the same species without the involvement of the male or the female gamete is called asexual reproduction. Now, the new organism that is formed by asexual reproduction is genetically exactly similar to that of the parent or the reproducing organism. If you can see here, see how quickly reproduction takes place, and each of these organisms is exactly the same. They do not need a male or a female gamete in asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction is also called uniparental reproduction, meaning only one parent is required, and it occurs by mitotic division. You have learnt about mitosis, where one cell divides into two exactly similar cells. The advantage of asexual reproduction is that reproduction takes place at a faster rate than sexual reproduction. But a disadvantage is that because there is no male and female, there is no genetic recombination, and therefore the organism formed looks exactly like the parent. You can see here mitotic division. This is asexual reproduction beginning with the first cell, and when you go to number 6 you can see two exact replicas formed by asexual reproduction or mitotic division here. Asexual reproduction in unicellular organisms takes place in different ways. One of the ways is binary fission. One of the methods is binary fission. This takes place during favorable conditions. When there are good conditions, means when there is abundant food, enough of food, and then the organisms divide. Okay. The axis of fission, that means from where they divide, is different in different organisms. First comes the simple binary fission, and the organism, unicellular organism amoeba, it divides in any plane. It does not divide from top to bottom or left to right. It can divide anywhere because it doesn't have a specific shape. So after duplicating or replicating its genetic material through mitotic division, the cell then divides into two equal daughter cells, and then two similar individuals are produced from one single parent cell. Now, this is amoeba, and you can see in these two pictures, depending on the shape of the pseudopodia and whatever shape it is in, this one divides, the first one divides in this manner, and the second one divides in another manner. So the axis of fission or the axis of division is different in different organisms. The second type of binary fission is transverse binary fission, takes place in ciliates such as paramecium, where the liquid content of the cell, it separates transversely. okay, between two pairs of nuclei forming two different individuals. The splitting into two occurs by pinching off in the middle of the long axis of the organism. Now, this is paramecium. It is called a ciliate because it has hair-like structures for movement called cilia. And it divides in this manner, transversely. Hence, this is called transverse binary fission. Another type of binary fission is longitudinal binary fission, which takes place now longitudinally. Okay, and an example is this organism called Euglena, and this is how it divides. Right from top to bottom, nuclear material and cytoplasm divides, and finally you will get two exactly similar organisms or Euglena, and this is called longitudinal binary fission. Multiple fission. Now this occurs in amoeba, sometimes due to lack of food or other adverse or bad conditions, and here amoeba stops the formation of its pseudopodia. It stops movement, it becomes rounded, forms a protective covering around its plasma membrane and forms, it's called a cyst, a round ball. It stops everything, and this happens when there is lack of food or other adverse conditions. Now, while it forms a cyst, many nuclei are formed by repeated nuclear divisions in the cyst. Then the cytoplasm divides and many small amoeba or amoebulae are formed. After some time, this cyst, this round structure which amoeba has formed, it breaks open when the conditions change and they become good. And these small daughter amoeba are released. This is how it looks. The cyst, and the cyst opens out and small amoeba are released. Exactly like this. This is one is the parent forming the cyst due to adverse conditions. Then you can see nuclear and cytoplasmic divisions as so many small amoeba are formed and the daughter amoeba being released when the cyst breaks. Now we come to budding. This method occurs in yeast, which is a unicellular fungus. Yeast cells, again, they divide mitotically. The yeast cell is a parent cell. Now on this parent cell, there is a small bud-like thing that appears. One of the daughter nuclei enters the bud, and after it grows sufficiently, this bud separates from the parent cell and lives independently as a daughter yeast cell. You can see the small buds here forming on the parent yeast, and after it grows sufficiently, it will break off from the parent and lives as a daughter. Some of them are attached, some of them are unattached. So this method of asexual reproduction in yeast is known as budding. The difference between sexual and asexual reproduction. As you have learned now, in asexual reproduction, the single individual is the sole or only parent. And a single parent passes on all its genes to its offspring or the organism that it reproduces. Now, all these organisms that are reproduced are genetically identical to the parents. Whereas in sexual reproduction, two parents give rise to the offspring, that is male and female, and each one of them passes on half its genes to the offspring. Therefore, the offspring or the baby has a unique, different combination of genes from both mother and father or male and female. So what happens in asexual reproduction? There are no genetic differences. The organism which is formed or the baby is genetically identical to the parent. Whereas in sexual reproduction, you have a lot of genetic variation and the baby or the offspring looks different has similar characteristics to the mother or the father or the male or the female parent, but it is very different genetically from the parent.